Welcome to the Rise and Wander podcast, where we'll explore adventure, spirituality, and empowerment through the outdoors and beyond. Join me, Carla Amador, as we focus on topics around the mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional benefits derived through the outdoors. You'll also hear inspiring stories, get educated, and more. Let's get started. I wanted to take a moment to thank this season's Rise and Wander podcast sponsor, REI. REI is the outdoor gear retailer of the 52 Hike Challenge. I've been a member since I started my 52 hikes in 2012, and they've helped outfit me for all things hiking and outdoors since then. Becoming a member has many perks like 10% back annually on eligible purchases, a satisfaction guarantee, which gives you up to a year to return any purchases you aren't satisfied with, free shipping in the US, and so much more. Please visit them at rei.com. Join me, Carla Amador, for my new offering and program, Rise, a fully supported transformation program in which you complete 52 hikes while going through the 12 steps I've developed for healing and transformation through the outdoors. Each month, we'll go through a different topic with guided weekly exercises, one-on-one coaching with me, and access to a supportive community. This program is for anyone going through a life transition, those looking for a change, and anyone looking for accountability and guidance in their outdoors journey. Learn more and sign up at 52hikechallenge.com. Welcome to Rise and Wander, episode 8. Today, I'm going to be sharing tales from the Camino, friendships, lessons learned, and more. I'm actually going to get really authentic and vulnerable and share a lot of personal details and truthful, honest conversations and things that happened and why this trip was so meaningful to me, to my mom, and maybe what it can do in your life. I hope this will inspire you and give you hope that broken relationships can be mended if two people are willing to try. So I'm going to get started, and I may cry, so I have some Kleenex here, and that's okay. I don't know where this is going to go, but I do want to say that it took me some time to process everything, and you're the first to hear the whole story from me. So as I mentioned earlier in this podcast, I became pregnant at the age of 17. And when my mom found out, she said that I needed to move out with my partner, who became my husband. And at 18, I moved out and I got married, and eventually I had a baby. And I never really got to know my mother as an adult. I left my house at 18, and I had a perception of her in my mind. And as anyone going through this journey knows, our parents really deeply impact us in our lives. And my parents came from El Salvador. I don't think they had the tools, resources, or education to necessarily be the people that I wanted them to be, or I really needed them to be, right? They were great, and I'm not disrespecting them in any way, shape, or form. I'm so grateful for them and everything they did. And also, I'm a reflection of them, right? But of course, with being such a young mom and having this perception of her leaving my house at 18, there was a lot of resentment within myself. And even though I always will love my mother and I've been around her and we had a good relationship, but there was a subconscious underlying resentment that I had held within myself. And when I was around her, a lot of times when I had left my home, I would notice that I didn't necessarily want to spend a ton of time with her. My time with her was very like, okay, I can be with you for an hour. So on my journey, I've done a lot of personal work on myself. I've done a lot of work on healing patterns and family things that come up. And I had done quite a bit of work with her and with a professional, and still there's layers. There's layers of this stuff that comes up for us. Like I mentioned, I took her on this trip because she had asked me to please take her before she passed away one day. And we're on our trip, we're getting our stuff at the cathedral, the Say Cathedral, and we go into one of the little churches in the cathedral. And I just start praying. And I clearly heard and felt what I was going to work on with her. And there was a lot of unresolved anger and frustration that I had never really fully expressed to her. So I knew right off the bat what this journey was going to be about. We picked up our credentials and we left, and we started on the trail. And in the beginning, we talked a lot, and she was sharing stories of her childhood. She's very talkative, and a lot of it was good. And we also had times where there were frustrations that came up on the trail. She was actually being really slow, and I had to wait for her a lot. And I asked her to please train. I was trying my best to not let my emotions get the best of me and to try to talk to her about it. And again, we had a lot of wonderful moments. And there were some days where I was asking her to please, we got to get on the road. And she has her own way. And I remember one day I was feeling really frustrated with her because this has been a journey. It's not just on the trail. She's always been someone who just walks her own path, and I've had to be very patient with her my whole life. There was one morning where she was taking a really long time, and I'm like, we have to get ready to go. And we get on the trail, and I felt really upset with her, and I was feeling very angry. And I just walked, and I knew that if I was walking, it would go away because I was releasing stuff on the trails, and the trails takes all of these feelings away. And afterwards, I finally was like leaving her a little bit in the dust. And I knew it was time for me to make up with her. And I like looked at her and I made a comment. And she said in Spanish something that I will not forget. And till this moment just cracks me up. She goes, Se te pasó el indio. We're Native Central American and we have Native roots there. And indio means someone native. She was saying that this was a saying, and I just start cracking up because I never heard this. And she said it in such a sweet, cute way. I was like, how can I be mad at this lady? We just laughed, and I was crying and just telling her, like, yes, I'm frustrated because you're taking a really long time and we need to get on the road. And anyways, she ended up telling me all these stories that day about her life and just even sharing recipes and what her mother used to do growing up to make money. They grew up in the countryside and they didn't have toilets and restrooms at the time. And we were talking about a lot of things. It was really beautiful. I remember one day on the trail, and I had many moments of this anger that was like coming up for me and frustration. I was telling her how I'm learning to release it back into the earth, and I'm learning a lot of tools that I wasn't taught. And so I've been having to learn these things as I'm going through my journey and growing. And one day I showed her how you can scream out loud and grab a stone and throw it and envision that being that frustration, that anger. And I said, you should try that because it's a good way of releasing. And I think towards the end, I had many moments. I'll just keep it to this point is that I had many moments of frustration with her. And I recognized that a lot of that stuff is just stuff I never had dealt with in the past with her. I had never shared with her like how angry I had been at her because I didn't feel supported in my journey. And there were things that happened as a kid that I think I never really expressed to her. I didn't have boundaries. I wasn't able to express to her, like, hey, I didn't like this, or this is a no for me. So please respect my no. There's a lot of things and cultural things that I won't get into today. When we got to Santiago and we got our Compostelas, this lady looked at us and she's, wow, you guys came a long way. And I looked at her and it all melted away. all the anger, all the frustration on the trails melted away. And it was like none of it mattered because we had done this really beautiful thing together. And to see and know that I helped her to achieve something that she wanted and to be able to tell her how mad I had been at her and her listening. And there's more to this story, but I'm keeping it to the Camino. It was really important and special. We've restored our relationship. I can say that I can see her through different eyes now. I see that I had been seeing her through the eyes of that 17-year-old, that 18-year-old girl for 22 years. And I was really thankful to the Camino for the time and space, for the work that I've done to recognize that it's okay to speak my truth and she's still going to love me, and letting go, just learning, growing. And it's okay to make mistakes in our lives and to honor pain and to share it with people if they allow us to. So that's my story. It was really powerful. And I'm so grateful to have that time on the Camino and that I'll never forget the journey. And there were a lot of things I learned about my mom that I didn't know. Again, seeing her through these colored lens that were resentful, I couldn't really truly see her and embrace her and celebrate her. But I can now, and it's so special. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the lessons and learnings and things that I want to leave you with. But yeah, it was something else. And there's been a lot of healing for her. I'm very grateful for that. Let's see if we can move on into some other things that I wanted to share with you all, talking about that story. Being intentional about why you want to take the Camino, I think, is going to be really important and key in all of this. That will help you and be your guiding light and guiding star. And like I said, for me, I just meditate a lot, I pray a lot, and I have a lot of clarity through that. And that voice, that inner knowing guides me. And I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful that I've developed that and that I trust that knowing. So sit with yourself and really trying to understand that. Why am I doing this? Why am I taking this Camino? Let that be your guiding light when it gets hard, when you're frustrated, when you're facing struggles on the trail, when you want to give up. Let that guide you. I think that will really help you. Also, being authentic and truthful and speaking up for your needs when you're doing something like this is super important. What I mean by that is if you need to stop and take care of a blister, do that. If you're hungry and you need a break, do that. Share with those around you what's happening, what's alive within you. There's a little more to this story, and you'll learn it as I continue sharing for today. That I found out my mom had this problem with her leg, and that's why she was slow the whole time. And she didn't tell me until our last day. And I said to my mom, I said, Mom, you really should have shared this information with me so that I could have been aware of what was happening. Instead, I thought you were just lollygagging and taking your sweet time and just, I didn't know that. And you didn't allow me to show up for you and help you. And she said she was really scared that I wasn't going to let her walk. And that's why she didn't tell me. And so I'm learning this beautiful dance of being empathetic, trying to help her and also look out for her. So I understand where she was coming from, but I really was like, this is what happens when we're not authentic. We're not really truly being honest. And so there I was feeling this great frustration pretty much every single day. But yeah, be honest, be authentic, because those that love you and those that are going to be in your life, they're going to be there. And we're all going to have good and bad moments on the trail. So take care of yourself, be authentic, speak your truth, and take care of your needs. The people on the trail, there were some incredible hosts. They do this because they love the Camino. They've done it themselves, a lot of them, and they fell in love with what it means to be a pilgrim, a peregrino, to be on this Camino that's so sacred, so special. Take time to talk to them and get to know them. And We were just taken care of by so many beautiful souls, whether it was they served us breakfast or they helped us with something. Just truly have to say the people, the hosts, they make this experience. Wow. I'm going to jump into friendships made on the Camino. And honestly, like there were some incredible people that helped us and were a part of our journey. Like I mentioned, Marcus Pavani was one of our first trail angels. He and his son were walking this trail together and they gave us these little hearts and we kept running into them and hiked with them. And as a matter of fact, Marcus gave me a beautiful bracelet from Brazil. And even though we didn't speak the same language, we were able to still communicate and understand each other. And it was so beautiful. And there were times where we would meet up with them at different cafes, and he had a group and was like, come on over, and served us wine. Just so loving, so kind. And then I will never forget getting to this one really amazing stay. We met up with this group, Tolly and Lawrence and Anders. And that night we were in this beautiful home and my mom was cooking from all the things she had harvested that day when I thought she was taking her time. And it felt like a family. We were drinking a beer and my mom was cooking. And even though I had work to do, I said, okay, this day, something is telling me nothing's going to happen. You have to be here now. And I remember Lawrence was getting to know us and we were getting to know Lawrence. And he was like, your mom's amazing. She should have her own TV show. And I was laughing. Like it was so cute to see how my mom was a magnet for people. People love her on this trek and they think she's the most adorable thing because my mom had to have lipstick every time she was going to take a photo. And she's like Miss Fashionista on the trail. And I loved hearing other people's opinions of her outside of my perception, right? And perspective. And then we met Tali there and she became close with my mom. They hiked together and Tali was giving my mom feedback and advice. And my mom was really loving hiking with different people and it would really help to get her going. And she started getting it at the end. She's like, oh, I get it now. I get why I shouldn't stop and pick all the things. And that really helped once we got a group together and we decided to hike together and we were taking breaks together. And it was beautiful. And then again, I mentioned D'Amico and James, I met our first night and we would pass them and we would stop for a little midday snack and have a glass of wine. And Emiko loved my mom and it was so sweet. And James and my mom were talking at one point and it helped me to take also breaks from like being in charge or what I thought was being in charge of mom. And then we met this sweet young man on the trail and he had a blister and I took care of it and just so fun. And other fun little things that I'll say that happened were I actually had a date on the Camino and that was super fun. I'm not going to make mentions of names, but hey, you never know what can happen on the Camino. It was wonderful and I had a lovely evening and it was just so unexpected and so fun and that was great. And then I'll share another little funny story. It's always funny, right, when you're in the moment, but one day we were at a stop and this guy says, "You have to eat at this restaurant." And he gives me the info. We get into town. We don't make reservations, just thinking like it shouldn't be busy. And our friends get in line. There's a line and we see Marcus, our friend, and we're like, hey, can we be with your group? And he's like, I don't know. And we sneak in. Okay. So we sneak in. All right. And then we're like sitting at a table and they're like, the restaurant's full. There's no space. And we're like trying to pretend we have this table. And they're like, who made your reservation? And we're like, Juan Pablo. And it was like six of us at this table. And we're just laughing about Juan Pablo, who made reservations for us, who we met earlier and said this restaurant was amazing and we have to eat there. And we ended up getting the walk of shame. Like we got kicked out. And here are all of us and these older ladies. And we end up at this one restaurant. It was great. And we just had so much fun. And my mom was putting lipstick on Tali. And we're just laughing about this Juan Pablo that made these reservations. He became our new friend that we had made on the trail. So no, these are silly things, right? But they make the memory, they make the journey so much more fun. So embrace these beautiful, incredible people you're going to meet on the trails. They just make the journey that much more enjoyable. And of course, I talked about food already and restaurants, and make sure to eat the pastel de nata and the sopa gallega and the tortilla de patata. There's so much to enjoy. Go for it. You're going to be walking a lot. I remember I lost a ton of weight. And yes, there is Wi Fi. A lot of the restaurants will have Wi Fi. I bought a SIM card and eventually my SIM ran out. But yeah, you're going to mostly have Wi Fi. I think the last thing I want to say is I talked about it is at the end, right? You're going to go pick up your Compostela, but celebrate the daily wins. Celebrate the little things. If you didn't think you could make it this far, or you did something that you're really proud of, celebrate that, especially at the end, because it's never the final thing. Yes, that's a huge accomplishment. And I saw some people crying and having their spiritual moments on the trail. But I think the biggest thing I can say is celebrate. Celebrate yourself. Go for a nice dinner after you're done. Write about your experience. And this is such a huge accomplishment. It really can be so powerful. And I definitely want to go back and I want to do another Camino at some point. And who knows, maybe I'll bring a group one day. But yeah, I felt like it was important for me to share these life lessons and to be authentic and vulnerable. And I guess what I really truly wanted this episode to be about, and what I want you to take away, is that relationships can be mended and you can reconcile things both through processing, speaking about it, and releasing these things that hold us back from being happy. And it's worth it. It really is worth it. So I really hope that you found something inspiring in today's episode, and that you know that there is hope, and to keep walking this journey of life. It's like the trails. There's going to be difficulties, there's going to be moments of beauty, and that's what makes life. You're going to get there anyway. So you might as well enjoy the journey. Yeah, that's it for today. Thank you so much for being a part of my journey and listening. And I wish you a beautiful rest of your day. See you on the next episode.